Here's a question for you. You might be seeing this like changed glory. What does that mean? Well, we're actually in Jeremiah chapter 2 today. I'm talking about this idea. Now, if you were with me yesterday, watched online, watched the first sermon in Painfully Blessed, we talked about the idea that Jeremiah spends 45 of his 52 chapters talking about the judgment of God that's about to happen. And God explains to the children of Israel, Judah, Jerusalem, he explains to them, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is why what is about to happen is going to happen. You know, all those things that you've tried, as even a Josiah the king, if you go through the history, this young boy who's trying to bring reformation back, trying to bring the people's heart back to God, doesn't work because their heart never fully returns. And there's a line here that is very interesting, and I hope you're listening. I hope you really put the thinking caps on, think through this what he says here. Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 11. I'm reading out of the ESV version. Has a nation changed its God? Or even though they are no gods, basically it's God speaking through Jeremiah. Has a nation ever changed its gods? That those that are no gods, that they've changed from one to another. And why do you change? Why do you change your God, right? Why would you change that deity that you worship? Well, because they're not pulling through and they're not doing what you think they should be doing, right? Or you know, the blessings or whatever. There's a reason. But he says this, but my people, and he's talking about the Israelites at this point, but my people have changed their glory for that which does not profit. He said, here's a deal, Israel. You guys came in. I brought you into the promised land. I've set you. I took you as a people that was not a people, pulled you out of Egypt as a nation, brought you into the promised land. That's where they're at. Brought you prosperity. David, Solomon, right? All this stuff. I did all this. But he said, you know, you watch Solomon at the end of Solomon's life, he begins to worship other gods. He said, so in the height of prosperity, in the height of the blessing, you change your gods. You begin to walk away from me. And as you walked away from me and you walked into other gods that are no gods, aren't able to, now you're complaining. Now you're upset because you're seeing all this cursing, you're seeing all this destruction come upon you. But here's the deal. It's your fault. You took your glory and you settled for something a lot less. It reminds me of those kids. And I don't know if you've don't do this to kids, but it's kind of funny a little bit, right? When a kid gets excited, they get money, you know, and let's say, you know, they have 2 quarters, you know, and you're like, oh, wow, you got 2 quarters. That's great. Well, you know what? I'll give you 4 nickels for those 2 quarters because 4 is more than 2. And so you do it, you know, and they're like, oh man, this is awesome. You know, now they got 4 nickels. You're like, you know what? I'll make you even a better deal. I'm going to give you 10 pennies for those 4 nickels, you know, and they think, oh, that's a great deal. And they take it. That's exactly what God is telling them. It's like, you had more than enough. You had everything you could ever need. All you to do was stay with me. But you turned that glory and you said, no, I don't want that glory. And you gave that up. And what you settled for was something less than that. And you know what? As Christians, I think we do the same thing. We settle for far less than what God desires of us. In Jeremiah chapter 1, God says, hey, I knew you before I formed you. And then before you were born, I consecrated you. I called you sacred. I did something incredible for your life. Not that you would just have a mundane life, but that you might have a life, as Jesus would say. You have a life and a life more abundant. That's why he came. That's why he did. And yet, we settle for that. We've turned our glory over for something that's not as good. We think for some reason that all the stuff the world can give us, all this enjoyment, right? The sins of the flesh, the lust of the flesh, the pride of life, right? All that stuff will make us better. But the truth is we're exchanging with that which is of glory for something far less. We're giving up our 50 cents for 20 cents. We're giving our 20 cents for 10 cents, right? Because we think we're getting more, and the truth is we're getting robbed. Understand that's what the enemy wants to do to you. He wants to rob you of everything. He wants to rob you of all that God has for you, the greatness. And he's convinced so many of us that we don't have to go to church. He's convinced so many of us that we don't need to read our Bible, that we don't need to pray, that we don't need to seek his face, that God's face, that we don't need to do all this other stuff, that we're going to be okay. And to have my best life now means I need to have my best life and make myself feel good. But the truth is, what we need to do is we need to seek God. We need to find him and stop exchanging his glory for something that's far less important.